Let's see if we're probably going to start a whole new stream, and that's unfortunate. And we're back up. Um, yeah, you were talking about the show In Search of, and you're kind of help me where you left off there. I don't even remember.
We're just so. Are we back live?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I don't see anything.
Yeah, you
Okay.
you should be getting a notification here really soon.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I grew up on that show, Unsolved Mysteries, and just loved it. The school I went to only had about 3 books on the paranormal, ghosts and Loch Ness monster. I think that's it. And I read those books over and over and over again. So once the internet was made available to the public,
Oh boy.
I know I'm going back. um, I was able to get online. I found a ghost hunting team, and I realized that I could actually do this. Like there were groups. They went out and they investigated haunted houses and stuff. So I joined a group and got into it, and I was totally on board. So I mean, I was total ghost hunter. I believed pretty much everything, and so I went like that for a few years. I was like that until I had an experience in Gettysburg that changed my mind, started changing my mind. And I can go into that if you want to.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So basically, there was a ghost conference in Gettysburg. Oh, man, I can't remember what it was called. It was an early one, very early, one of the first ones, I think, in Gettysburg. And I was having a great time. I was meeting people, and there were authors and all kinds of ghost hunting groups. And we were planning on going out to the battlefields, which we did. We got word from a ranger that there was this specific area of the wheat field it wasn't patrolled because the rangers didn't want to go because they were too scared. So naturally, me and my ghost hunting friends were like, "Yeah, that's where we go.
Yep.
Let's go visit that place." And we're sitting there in the woods, and right next to the wheat field, and I'm sitting there quietly. We're waiting for stuff to happen, and as I look out through the open field, I see a couple cars coming down the road, and they pull over at the parking spot right there, and I see a bunch of people get out, their flashlights, and they start coming our way. And now I'm starting to get agitated because I'm like, wow, nobody's supposed to know where we are. This is a secret spot only we know about. And holy crap, they're going to spoil it. So they were getting closer and closer, getting louder, and I was getting angrier. So I marched out of the woods. Now take it like this is like 9 o'clock at night, so it's pretty dark. I march out of the woods and I start yelling at them to go away, get out of here, leave us alone. They stop for about 10 seconds and then they all turn and run. They run back to their cars. They get in, they drive away. That's it. Next day, we get up in the morning, we go down to the lobby of the hotel and we're mingling with everyone. We're in the conference hall and we start hearing about a group that saw apparitions out in the wheat field. And I'm thinking, this is great. I was out there. When did this happen? And we start listening to the story and find out that they all got there and they got out and they walked across the field. And this apparition of this large soldier marched out of the woods and screamed at them to go away. Yeah. And it hit me. It hit me like a brick in the face. Like, wow, that was me. And we confirmed it, like checking the time. What time were you there? This group, how many cars? It was definitely me. There was no doubt about it. And the more I tried to convince them, the more they rejected it and said, no, it could not have been me. They knew what they saw. They know what they were doing. And it was definitely a ghost, even though all the details matched up.
Mm-hmm.
And from that moment on, I was like, something's wrong. Something's wrong with the way I'm doing things, with the way they're doing things. There's a lot wrong here. And it really bothered me. It really, really bothered me, and that really got me into more of the scientific and skeptical literature, and learning about and this is where it might start pissing off some of your listeners.
Yes.
I started learning how to do a proper investigation and not the pseudoscientific hobby that I see a lot of ghost hunters do. I started learning about the scientific method and experimental protocols and controls, and really dipped into photography. I dipped into photography so much that I took that on as a part-time job for many years, and just learned more and more. And so that pretty much brings me to almost present day. I've been publishing a lot. I publish a lot of articles. I publish a lot of videos. I do a video series for Skeptical Inquirer. They graciously asked me a couple years ago to start doing projects for them. And it's been a great relationship because I've had a lot of opportunities with them, and I just love to get to the truth, and that's what I do. So there you go. There's my origin story.
Nice. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a mess. The human condition is a mess.
Yes.
And we're gonna talk about some reasons why it's a mess. And it's not as bad for me to accept now. I kind of had to go through my growing pains. We all started off basically the same. We watched the shows. We heard about people are doing this. It's a pulp culture phenomenon. I want to do that shit too. That's the coolest thing ever. But my origin story is different. I experienced the bulk of all my unexplained stuff in my early 20s, way before I even thought of anything like this happening. And I've talked to you, I've talked to all the skeptics I could find, I've talked to all the spiritualist people I can find, investigators, and every time I tell people my stories, I'm either crazy or a liar. So I'm like, fuck.
Well, I mean, that's a good point to address here, is that when I listen to stories, when people approach me and tell me they want to tell me their stories, or I inquire about it, I do not think the majority of people are crazy. I mean, yes, I'm not going to lie. There are a few out there that I'm like, nope, you are someone to stay away from. But for the most part, I don't think people are crazy and or lying. I think most are sincere and they're genuine. They've experienced something. But my job is to find out what that something is. It could be misperceived. It could be a lack of information or data that came in, like contextual data or just visual cues or something. You didn't have enough of the information to figure out what was actually going on. So something happened. It may not have happened exactly the way you remember it, but that's what we have to figure out together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I approach it. I consider that investigating, rather than what you typically see ghost hunters do on like TV shows and stuff like that. But that was a good point. I like addressing that point, that I don't think people are usually crazy. It's just we got to figure out what happened.
Right. And I probably will never figure out what happened, but that's besides the point. I really want to focus in. Well, I want to riff for a little bit on the misconceptions about how people, their beliefs in the paranormal, how, their misconceptions of, the miscues, like you were talking about, pareidolia being probably one of the greatest examples of those miscues, of those ways that the brain can play tricks on us, and how the brain works. And that's what I found out early on. I started doing the research on the psychology end because I love psychology. I mean, I'm a nerd with it. When I took it in high school, I had 100 on every paper, on every test. It was awesome. I loved every aspect of it. And I noticed a lot of people weren't aware of how flawed our perception is. Yes. I mean, and that, I think that is the main problem. You take confirmation bias, you take cognitive dissonance, and you take psychology in effect, and this is what breeds what we see today. And the pulp culture aspect of it is capitalized on this and blown it up out of proportion, magnified all the stuff we're talking about. And I want to get you to riff on some of the key points that you lecture on when it comes to these things that I mentioned.
All right. So, I mean, there's so much. There's so much.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Perception is everything. I mean, that's where it starts. That's where these experiences start, with our perception of what's going on. So, wow. Most of the times when you see like ghost hunts or the investigations that most groups do, they are putting themselves in an environment that severely decreases their perception, namely turning out the lights. When you turn out the lights, now you can't see or see as well, and that's a problem. That's not, doing the ghost thing so that you can see them better. That's debilitating you. That's putting you at a handicap, because now you can't see as good, and you're not going to understand what's really happening in front of you. Also, most ghost hunts happen late at night, and now you run into problems of people being tired or nodding off, and getting into that dream state and not understanding or not fully comprehending what they're experiencing. But you touched on other things like confirmation bias. That's going in and remembering the hits and forgetting the misses. So if you go in to an alleged haunted location and you believe that location is already haunted, so the first problem you have is that you're primed. And priming is a big problem too, because now you're going in there and you think this place is haunted. I know it's haunted. I've read stories, I've seen websites, I've seen videos on YouTube, all this stuff. I know it's haunted. So you're going in there and ready to accept. And once you get in there, if you hear a weird noise, and honestly, how do you really define weird noise? It's pretty much any noise that you don't find a source for. If you see a shadow go across the hallway, if you feel like something touched your hair, you're going to attribute that to paranormal explanations or paranormal causes, as in ghosts and stuff like that. But you're not going to really consider like, oh, if I saw a shadow go across, but then I saw an investigator come out with a flashlight and realized it was him. Most of the time, you're going to forget that. And that's where the confirmation bias comes in. You're going to remember that time you saw a shadow, but never investigated it and found a cause of it. But you're going to forget that time where you saw a shadow and immediately one of your teammates came out with a flashlight, which was causing that shadow. And that's your confirmation bias. When it comes to pareidolia, I mean, that's oh geez, that's a big problem. That's when you have all this stimuli, visual or audio stimuli, and it's whether it's in a photograph or a video that's really, especially when they're really bad quality, and you're looking for faces and you see them. Like if you take a picture in the dark of a room and it's very, very dimly lit, you're going to have a lot of pixelation. You're going to have a lot of digital noise in that photo, and you're going to see shapes. I guarantee you're going to see shapes. You're going to see faces. You're going to see maybe whole bodies, but it's not really there. It's just our brain's ability to pick out some patterns, and that's what you're going to see. Same with audio. When you do audio, when you're listening to hours and hours of audio recordings that you took at a location, and you don't have that visual context, you can't see what's going on in that area. You're going to hear any kind of little noise, far off noises, close noises, maybe something on the table. Maybe somebody picked up the recorder and was holding it in their hand, and just the friction of their hand running across the body of that recorder can cause weird noises. So that can cause that audio pareidolia, and make you believe that you're hearing things, make you believe that you're hearing a name or just somebody talking. I can't tell you how many times I've had a fan in the window of my bedroom, and as I'm laying in bed, I swear I hear music. And I get up to look outside, see if somebody has a car radio on, or if somebody, maybe my wife's downstairs and she has the radio. Nothing. But I get back in bed, lay down, I hear the music. I turn the fan off, it's gone. Turn it back on, it's there. That's audio pareidolia, and it can happen with a lot of things. And these are just a few of the things that we have to consider when you're out there doing your thing.
Yep. Yeah, you're going into this whole thing flawed. And Mr. Parsons, help me remember his first name from over there. Yeah, Steve. One of my favorite takeaways from interviewing that gentleman is it's the hardest thing to do is to remove the human element out of the investigator. Is paraphrasing what he told me, and what he meant by that is all this, pretty much all the stuff and more we're talking about is what is hard to remove out. Okay. And what's so hard about it is you're doing this stuff in your spare time. You want to have fun. You're paying money for all this stuff. There is a trillion reasons why you're going to have a bias on what your expectation is going to be when you go there.
Yeah.
It's almost unavoidable.
You have a vested interest.
Yes.
You spend, and I get it. Like I come across this when people want to show me all the, and I'm using air quotes here, evidence that they've captured with specific gadgets, ghost hunting gadgets, and like they have spent hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on these gadgets. So it's in their best interest to be able to produce something. And I'm not saying that they do it deliberately. I'm not saying that most people, I think most people honestly see an anomaly with their gadgets and they really think it's an anomaly, like a paranormal anomaly, rather than a glitch in the software or a misunderstanding or a misinterpretation of the results, or just a blatant misuse of the device itself, which is fairly common when you actually don't know what the device does. So we see that a lot, where people are just using this equipment and they use it because they see it on TV. For one, they see it on a TV show, or they see other ghost hunting groups use it, or they see like YouTube videos where people are using certain gadgets and they want it too. And I get that. I get the novelty of it. I understand it because I was like that too. And I mean, I most of the gadgets that I have, which again are packed up right now, but I have pretty much all the ghost hunting gadgets there are because I've tested them all. But you spend that money, you've seen other people get results, and there's that really hardcore desire for the same results. You want to get them too. And I understand that, but in reality, you have to understand that, are those results valid? And what makes them valid? That's what you have to consider. And unfortunately, the majority of paranormal enthusiasts do not consider that. That's a lot.
Sorry, man.
You want to do some shout outs, and I have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have Christy, I have Greg, I have Tom, I have Eddie, Josh, Derek, Troy, Becky, Joe, and Matt are on YouTube. And Matt wants to know if you have ever had a paranormal experience that you couldn't explain, Kenny.
So I will answer it this way. I've experienced stuff that I could not explain, but I would not call it paranormal. And the reasoning behind that is that, to me, calling it paranormal is making a conclusion. And to make a conclusion, make a valid conclusion, you have to have the supporting data for it. So if something happens and I'm not sure what caused it, then I leave it at I don't know. I can't say it's paranormal because I don't know what caused it. Say, for example, I see a shadow down the end of a hallway. What does that mean? Like, to me, that means there's a shadow there. Something caused it. There was light something blocked the light and it caused a shadow. I need to figure out what it is. If I can't, then I chalk it up to I don't know what that was until I get more information. If more information is ever, if ever comes to light. That's funny, a little pun. Come to light when a shadow figure. But otherwise, I can't make a conclusion. I can't say it's a paranormal experience because that would be, honestly, it'd be deceiving myself, and deceiving others by saying, we're promoting it's a paranormal experience, because it's not. You don't really know it is. So I would leave it at that. I hope that satisfies the question.
Well, that was more of a disclaimer. You didn't actually say what you experienced.
Oh, I thought he was just asking whether I did or not. So, I mean, there's been plenty of times something's happened where I don't know what happened. I don't know what caused it. I mean, I can't give you something specific because I've been doing this for the 20 plus years. So there's always going to be, you know what? I can give you an example. So I was at a place called White Hill Mansion in New Jersey, and I was there. It was three of us, Dawn, who is one of the people that worked there, my wife, and myself. And we're going through the basement. And if you've never been there, the basement has a bar, like a full, big, awesome looking bar. I really like it. So we were down there talking about some of the alleged claims that happened down there. And as we were beginning to go up the stairs, there was a loud bang. And it came from the floor above us, or at least that's what it came from above us. And of course, we're on the basement, so it was above us. We walked upstairs, looked around. We were looking to see if anyone was there. Maybe somebody walked into the house. Maybe another volunteer showed up. Nothing. We wanted to see if something fell over. Couldn't find anything that was out of place. The only thing that was possible was that something fell off one of the trees and hit the roof, because let me explain this right. Besides the main mansion, there is a back part that has a low roof. It's only 1 story high, so it has a lower roof, and there's trees over top of it, so something could have come off and hit the roof of that. But we didn't check that. But going through the rest of the house, it really did sound loud enough that it was inside. We thought it was inside and fairly close to us, but we couldn't find a cause of it. Now, is that a paranormal experience? I can't say. Is it not a paranormal experience? I can't say. It's an experience. We heard a noise, couldn't find a cause, and that's the end of it. Until more information comes up, that's the end of it for me. So there you go. There's a specific example.
Good job. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I tried.
Do you want to read Josh's comment or any other ones? I know Becky had one.
Yeah, I'll read Becky's and then I'll read Josh's. Okay. Becky asked, when they show you things, do you just agree with them? And then Justin asked her to be more specific, and she said, like, they bring you some evidence that is clearly something else. Do you piss the person off or just let them think it's good?
Oh, Kenny. I can't think of a better person to answer this question.
I am honest. I don't bullshit people. I do not lie to you. I do not make you feel better. If you ask me, let me rephrase that last one. So if you come to me and say, I have this photo, I have this video, I have this recording, I want to know what your opinion is. I will be honest with you. Dead honest. I don't pull any punches, tell you exactly what I think. I do it in a polite way. I'm not mean about it. I don't just tell you, no, that's a bug, and then walk away. I explain exactly what it is. I think it's a bug, and this is why. And I explain like a focus and perspective and various other things. However, if somebody tells me a story and it's about, say, a loved one that just recently passed, and they believe that they had a visit, like this loved one came back to tell them that it was okay and they were fine and everything will be fine, don't worry about me, and like maybe in a dream state or something like that, and they just want to tell me the story, then usually I say, oh, well, that's a cool story, thank you for sharing, and that's it. I'm not going to go any further. If they want me to give an opinion, then yeah, I'll offer it, but only if they ask. So I think that answered that question.
Oh yeah.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be a dick about it, honestly.
Well, for me, it depends on my mood, and I can become cynical. I know Kenny, whether he wants to admit it or not, over the years, I've been listening to Kenny for years. He used to have podcasts on different platforms, YouTube channels. It depends on your mood sometimes.
Yeah.
And if you get on a show, especially when you're going to accept calls, or if you're worked up over something, I can come across as a dick sometimes, because it just gets monotonous. You just get tired of the ignorance that, some people just can't help it. They don't understand photography. They just don't know. But man,
Well,
the orb thing.
Oh, Jesus.
That should you should get hit in the face with a hammer every time you ask about it.
I get it. I know where you're coming from, and I feel it too sometimes, because you feel like you've repeated yourself hundreds, if not thousands of times. But every time I feel that, every time I have that feeling over me, like, fuck, here we go again.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that I've done this 1,000 times, but this person that's asking for help has not. This is the first time, most likely, that they've come across something that's weird. They don't know what it is, and so many people have agreed with them, and they finally come to somebody that has an opposing view. Let me see what they have. And I appreciate that they've taken the time, or at least, and I don't want to sound conceited with this, but they have the courage to ask someone like me that has the opposing views. If you have the courage to come up and ask for an opinion, then I owe it to you to be nice about it, be professional. But I'm going to tell you what it is. So for a quick example, a woman came up to me, elderly woman that came up. She had a stack of photographs. And for you kids out there, we used to actually print our photographs on photographic paper. But she came up with a stack that was like 1.5 inches thick. And she was so excited to show me this photo. And it was a dark area. It looked like it was outside. And there were 2 gold lights in the photo, and they were kind of blurry. So she's like, "Oh, I talked to several people, and they told me these were orbs, because I know you like orbs, Justin."
Love them.
They were golden orbs, and because they were golden, they meant this and that. And somebody told me to come ask you for your opinion. I later found out that that person was a friend of mine, a photographer that was playing a joke on me.
Nice.
But having fun with this. But the lady was sincere, and she showed me the photo, and I said, if you really want to know what I think, she's like, yes, I do. I said, well, it looks like you took a picture outside, and these look like street lights. And she's like, well, no, they are not. And she started yelling at me. So I'm still trying to be nice, because this is an elderly lady. I don't want to be fighting with an elderly lady or you screaming back and forth. So I asked, I said, you have a big stack of paper or photos there. Do you have another photo of the scene? And the very next photograph is the same scene in focus. You can see the poles, the light poles. You can see the street lights. You can see everything. And I said, well, there you go. I don't know why you're asking me when the next picture is right there. And she screamed, yelled, called me a couple names, which I didn't think that she would say, because she was an old lady, but she did anyway, and she left. And that's a case where I was honest with her because she wanted me to, but it kind of, it didn't really backfire on me, but it turned out bad for me because she got pissed off. But that's her fault, not mine.
It's a bummer, though.
It is a bummer, I'm not trying to deceive you. I have nothing to gain off of this. I'm trying to help you understand what you got. So if you're going to get pissed off, here's my disclaimer. If you want to ask me for advice on something, by all means, I'm happy to do so. But think of this. If you don't get the answer you want, and you're going to get pissed off, don't waste my time. That's my disclaimer. Just don't waste my time, because you probably will get an answer you don't want. So let's avoid the whole situation. You go about your business. believing what you want, and I will go about my business, and everyone will be happy.
Moving on. Go ahead and read Josh's. I love it.
I'll read Josh's comment, and then I have a question on YouTube.
Okay.
Josh said, I think that I'm in the beginning, you see it on TV and you want the same results. So you purchase the equipment. And when you start using it, your logic and investigative side or skeptic side goes away, and you get lost in the random lights and sounds of the equipment going off. Some snap out of it and realize that it isn't actually research, and most don't know how to figure out how the equipment works and figure out false positives like Kenny does.
Yeah. That excitement. There's a lot of excitement. I've seen it before. People get excited. They have the new toy, as seen on TV. They're so excited about it, and the lights are lighting up, and the beepers are beeping, and all kinds of crazy things are showing up on a screen if it has it, and it's addicting. You love it, and I get why they get lost in it. But in my experience, which I love this part, is that there have been more than several people that have gone the same route. They've gotten a device or a gadget and they've tried it out and they've realized this shit doesn't work. Like, it doesn't do what they said it did. And usually that's when they reach out to me, because maybe they found an article that I wrote about it and they said, hey, I realized, it doesn't work the way they said it does. I don't want this anymore. And that's how I usually get my ghost hunting equipment, because I get donations from people that realize it doesn't work. And then I get to take it apart and figure out what it really does. But yeah, I mean, there's sometimes where they don't know how it works. And I think he touched on that, where you don't know how the gadget works. EMF meters are a great example of this. Your typical EMF meter is a single axis meter, which means your K2, your Lutron, several of them, several of the common ones, they're single axis, meaning that you have to actually spin or rotate the device in 3 directions in order to get an average reading. You can literally have like for instance, I took my Lutron meter, which has the digital readout on the front. I took it and put it in front of my microwave, turned the microwave on, got this high reading, but I rotated the device about a half inch and the reading went away. So that there tells you just slight movements can change how that meter reads.
Yep.
So it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So when you hear ghost hunters, and I'm not trying to be derogatory when I say ghost hunters, it's just easier to say that than paranormal investigator. When ghost hunters go in and they claim they're doing their base readings, and they're walking down hallways, walking into a room with their EMF meter in front of them, and they're just walking around the room and then walking out, they are not taking anything remotely like a base reading. Everything they're doing during that alleged base reading walkthrough is completely invalid. It's a waste of time. It looks good on TV, but it doesn't work. It's not giving you the data you think you're getting. So, I mean, that's Josh is right. Like, if they don't know how to use the equipment, read the fucking manual. Get the instruction manual. Read it. Or look it up. Look up the manufacturer. And I don't mean the people that make ghost hunting equipment in the garages. Not like that. And no offense, Josh. But go to a manufacturer's site. Like, for instance, the EMF meters. Go to the manufacturer's site and read the specs on it. Read how the instructions on how to use it, because you'll realize you're using it wrong.
Right,
Josh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good.
Tom asked, he said, a question I have never asked you. In all of your times at Selma Mansion, have you ever experienced anything that you can't explain?
Nope. I've been to Selma Mansion for, more than a dozen times. Maybe 2 or 3 dozen times.
Wow, that's a lot.
Never had anything. I mean, it's not that far from me. It's only about like 40 minutes. So I'm able to go there for a lot of their events, and it's a great place. The people are great. Bill Freeman, who used to run a lot of the stuff, he passed away earlier this year. Good friend of mine. I miss him dearly, but he was a total believer, and we got along great. We got along so well, and he would invite me back, and even like D and all the other people that run it, they invite me back so I can set up my skeptical booth during their paranormal events. So it's a wonderful place, and I love the people there. But as for like haunted activity or stuff like that, nothing has ever happened while I was there. And I've stayed overnight 2 or 3 times. I've been in the place alone at least once for a full day, just me, and absolutely nothing happens. It's a nice, quiet place, though. There you go, Tom.
Keep going, Missy.
Okay, Josh Bender said I did that. I had an Ovilus 3, and it turned out to be a piece of shit. So I sold it not long after I bought it. I wish I still had it again to sell again, because now they sell for $1,000. For some reason, they are a highly desired piece of equipment, like the famous Panasonic recorder. I shouldn't even call it a piece of equipment.
No, it's a piece of shit. I'm sorry. Anyone that loves that old school Panasonic recorder, sorry, it's no good. It was a horrible audio recorder. The sample rate was awful. Everything about it was awful. That's why it gave you these alleged voices or growls, whatever they were. They're horrible. And it's just I can't believe they're on eBay for like $1,000 or more, because they just don't do what they claim. But yeah, the Ovilus 3, I don't know why the Ovilus is a popular item. I mean, I don't know if they still do it with the Ovilus 3, but I mean, the one that I have is the original football shaped one. And I mean, it says it on there for entertainment purposes only. That's your first clue that it's not an investigation piece of equipment. It is a novelty. It's an entertainment novelty gadget. It's nothing for a serious investigation. So I don't know why people think they're great. I don't understand why they value the I don't even want to say results, the random words that pop out of it.
We covered why at the beginning. Right? Am I wrong?
No, he did.
Keep going.
Matt had a question on YouTube. He said, have you ever had an accurate reading from a medium? I am also not talking about beating around the bush accuracy. I mean like specific names or some kind of accurate details.
I have not. I've sat for several mediums, and I do it. I go to psychic fairs and sit with as many as I can afford. And I don't mean, I'm not trying to be mean. It happens to be it, like, because sometimes.
Is this when I link your PayPal?
Yeah. There you go. If you want to donate. But yeah, I mean, I usually sit for like the 15-minute readings, and they're usually like $15 to $20 each. So I usually spend like $100 or $150 there and get several readings. But no, they've all been general. They have all been cold readings. As far as I know, they are cold readings. I've never had a hot reading at a psychic fair or anytime I've sat down, because honestly, and this may sound funny, but the mediums that know me, that we know each other, will not read me. And I think that's a safe bet, honestly, but I never got a reading from someone that actually knows me. Most of them, they do not know me, complete strangers, and they've all been cold readings. So they basically throw out general ideas or general statements in order to see what bites. And I make it a policy not to provide information. And I'm also, one of the things I've been able to train myself to do is to be careful of my head movements, because we all have that tendency to nod or shake our head when we're agreeing or disagreeing with something. So I make sure I'm constantly thinking about it the entire reading. don't move your head, don't move your head. And when they do ask me a question, if it's a yes or no question, I'll say yes or no. But otherwise, I won't answer any other questions. And usually it goes south within the first 2 minutes. It really dies down, and that's it. It doesn't work. So, hey, you want to give me a reading? I'm game.
Or they do the tarot cards.
Oh, gee. I mean, they're pretty. I'll tell you. I'll give you that. Tarot cards are pretty. I have probably like 2 or 3 dozen packs myself.
I got gifted a really cool one. It's the Day of the Dead pack, I think, or whatever it's called. They're all like the Hispanic skeletal artwork. I got to show you these. They're one of the coolest ones. Bill Davis got me those.
He did like the stream earlier, so hopefully he's okay.
Yeah, he's good. All right, so we got a lot of comments coming in now, man, and I want to keep up with them. Go ahead, Missy.
Well, let's see.
I know Wake Paranormal TV said he sold his DR60 for $3,000.
Yeah, he said I sold it for $3,000.
That's awesome.
Wake Paranormal also said, I only believe in the paranormal if the YouTube thumbnail has a shocked, dramatic face in front of the location.
That's good.
You can't not click on it. It's impossible. You just automatically click on it.
I'm torn between the whole reselling gadgets, because it's like, if you don't think it works anymore, but you're gonna sell it to someone else, I wonder. So I don't want to single them out, but I forget the team that you said sold the Panasonic
Wake Paranormal TV.
So like, did they sell it under the same description, or did they sell it as a more like a collector's item kind of thing? I'm just curious, because and I'm not picking on them. I want to make sure they understand I'm not picking on you. I'm just curious. Like, I wouldn't be able to sell something if I bought a gadget that claimed, hey, this detects ghosts, or this picks up ghosts or demons or something like that, and I found out it didn't work the way it did, which is usually what happens with me. But if I found that out and confirmed it, I wouldn't be able to resell it with the same kind of description.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I couldn't say, this is a ghost hunting device, buy it. But if I said, hey, this is considered a classic ghost hunting device, but it doesn't work, then I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, you just post, piece of shit recorder, doesn't hear ghosts' voices. Please buy me for $3,000. Like, I mean,
I could use $3,000.
I mean, he's got kids. He's done a bunch of remodeling to his house. I mean, he's just trying to recoup, man.
Oh, I hear you.
He's trying to recoup.
Again, I'm not picking on him.
He said he listed it on eBay with the title Panasonic DR60, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it's crack, dude. He sold crack. Okay, it sells itself.
I did not list it for $3,000.
It was an auction. Oh,
wow.
Oh, crackheads fighting over it. I'm sorry, I'm bad. Don't listen to me, guys. Okay, we got Spirit Stalker coming in. Nice to see you tonight. Yeah, I kind of want to get into the educational part of it, because I want to take advantage of that while you're here. What do you try to teach folks to do? I know we talked about the things that kind of causes issues when investigating the paranormal or perceiving what we believe is paranormal. What are the key points that you try to educate folks on when ghost hunting, investigating the paranormal?
I try to emphasize critical thinking. So basically, just not taking everything in at face value, not accepting and or believing things just because somebody said so. Like, do your research. And I don't mean, I'm trying not to sound mean or spiteful, but I don't mean do your research by looking at other paranormal sites, websites, and stuff like that. Do your research by, let's look at the history of the place. Let's look at the manufacturer of some device. Let's see if that person that's said to haunt this house, did they really exist? These are key points that you really should be doing. I mean, by the name investigator, if you're going to call yourself an investigator, I think you really should investigate all aspects of the mystery that's in front of you. If you're just taking the stories at face value, say like you heard this story about a woman that hung herself from the second floor of the building, and you go in there and start poking around with your devices and taking pictures, and then come out thinking, hey, this light, this shadow that I caught, or this meter reading, this is probably, the ghost of the woman that hung herself. And then later on, somebody comes along and says, you know what, I did some research into the history of the place and found out that this woman actually didn't die from hanging. She moved out of state and died of old age, like decades later. So like that kind of situation is what I try to emphasize, like the critical thinking part, the real research, not the superficial kind of surface. Oh, I heard this story, I'm going to go with it. That's not going to do anything. The critical thinking part is important. So I try to teach about details, pay attention to details, question everything. Like skepticism is not about denying every freaking thing in there. Skepticism is about doubt. It's having doubt about extraordinary claims or, everyday claims. You're not sure if they're true or not, and you want to get to the truth. So you start digging. And so that's what I do. I try to teach about going into details, maybe where to find some details, how to research. When it comes to photography, details to look in the photographs, the camera settings. You have to know what kind of camera was used because you want to know if the flash was on the left side or the right side. You want to know if it was a long exposure or not. Was it digital? Was it film? When you were investigating a place, were you the only one there? Do you have a photographic record of all the other people that were there? So these little details are really important to any investigation, and I find that most groups don't think about them. So I guess that's really what I get into. The critical thinking, the paying attention to little details, questioning things, clarifying. Clarifying is a big thing. So how many times, let me ask you, Justin, how many times have you or maybe you heard somebody ask, what did the ghost look like? And then the response is, well, they were dressed in period clothing. How many times have you heard something like that?
A lot.
So what does period clothing mean? Like, that's the big question. You hear it, and most of the time, that's the end of that conversation. That's the end of that part of that conversation. It's in period clothing. Oh, so yeah. Okay.
Yeah, usually it's like a generation or two back at least. That's what a general meaning of that. You're not going to immediately go, oh, I saw a Viking. It was...
I mean, that would be a first. That would be great.
I saw a dinosaur, dude. He was dressed in brontosaurus blood.
And that's the kind of questions you got to ask. Like, all right, what period? What time period are we talking? What class? Was it upper class? Was it lower class? Was it their Sunday best? Or, was it work clothes? Like, what are we talking about? Period dress. What the fuck does that mean? And I mean, it bothers me because it's such a common thing that we hear, yet nobody really knows what it means. And you need that clarification. Go ahead.
Yeah, just elaborate a little bit if
tell me a little bit. Like, all right, well, all right, so if it was female, like, are we talking a dress? Was it a skirt and then a blouse? Was it a one piece? Did they have leggings? Was it a short skirt, long skirt? Did they have poofy shoulders, ruffled sleeves, lace? What color? Black, white, blue, green, yellow. What are we talking about here? Don't tell me period dress, because that doesn't tell me anything. That's like saying, hey, what was your buddy wearing last night? Oh, casual clothes. That doesn't tell me shit. You know,
Yes, especially when you're talking to the police. I bet that annoys the police too.
God. And again, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just people need to clarify. You need to pay attention to details and write this shit down. You need to start carrying notebooks and writing every detail down. Keep a record of all the things you do, you see, you experience, and in great detail. And that's what I think groups need to start doing. I mean, there's a lot more that they need to do, but that's a start by just keeping a logbook of every single detail.
Yeah, Josh Bender. You could tell Josh that Kenny Biddle said, write shit down. He'll make her a t-shirt to celebrate the concept. Before we shift gears here, I did want to add to some of the stuff I asked you there. I think it's really important for people to investigate the actual claims.
Yes.
Instead of going in there trying to talk to the dead with broken radios and whatever. If they see something at a certain time in a certain place that looks like this, you want to see if you can observe that, and if others can observe that. You want to predict and replicate, scientific method. We'll talk about that. Education and learning. We start off believing in ghosts. They're really cool. We see a gadget on TV. We buy that. We want to talk to ghosts. We find out it's horseshit. That's the education, learning, and growing. I think that's the... If you walk away from this show as a beginner or, as someone who's been doing this for a long time, I want you to be able to say, I don't mind being wrong. I don't mind giving myself space to grow and make that the most exciting thing there is to fucking do about it. Okay? And I just wanted to add that because my favorite part of what Kenny does is the education and the allowing space to grow and the knowledge, where other people just are blindfolded, death marching into ignorance forever. And if you want to do that, that's your prerogative. You go ahead. But if you are serious about trying to do proper investigation, none of us are going to be perfect, but you try to do it and you try to be better each time you do it and you try to learn. Go to Kenny's stuff. Go to his blogs. Follow Kenny. That's what he's trying to do. And ever since I've known about him, he's made me better. And
thank you.
And I think everybody else should at least, take a look at your stuff. And I'm hoping that they will, man, because it's just a wealth of good shit. There's only 0.5% of cynicism there, here and there. But I just wanted to say that before we move on. Is there anything in the chat, Missy, before we move on?
No. Bill said period dress is only worn once a month.
Oh my God, he is.
Oh boy. And the show took a turn.
I used to do a Friday show with Bill, and that's why I had him as my sidekick, because I wanted him to say that shit, and I didn't have to.
I do like one of the points you made about being able to admit you're wrong. It's
huge.
That's one of the most difficult things we can overcome. It really is. It's very difficult to say I was wrong, especially when you're talking about something you believed in for years, you've promoted and invested a lot of time and money into. It's very, very hard to say, fuck, I was wrong. I went through it a bunch of times. It's embarrassing. It's difficult. You feel like shit, but you know what? I've gotten used to it because there were plenty of times I was wrong. Mm-hmm. And the more you get used to it, the more you accept it, the more you understand that it's okay. You're allowed to be wrong as long as you make up for it. Don't be wrong and just continue it or continue to promote the wrongness of your ways, Zach Vagans. Just own up to it and say, look, I was wrong. This is why I was wrong. And this is what I did to correct it. I think that shows a lot more honesty and integrity than to continue to promote bullshit that is bullshit.
Right.
So, good point to bring up.
Also, I don't know why I didn't write this down while you were talking. Kenny is an advocate of I don't know. If you don't know, you don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, if I don't
Probably
know,
the best stance there is probably I don't know.
Yeah, and that's as honest as you can get. You know, like I don't know. I don't know what happened, and leave it at that. I mean, maybe sometimes it takes me years to figure out. I mean, my job is to solve mysteries. That's what I do. So if I take on a mystery, whether it's ghosts or cryptids or UFOs or religious mysteries, whatever, if I take it on because I think there's enough information to go with and to see it through to the end. But if I do get to a stopping point where there's just not enough information to go on, then yeah, that bottom line on my notebook, the bottom of that section will say, I don't know. And it'll have the date and time, and it'll stay like that until new information comes up. Because I'm not going to bullshit. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, I figured it out, or I think it's this. No, if I don't know, I don't know. And I'll be honest with you.
And the reason I feel like that's important is, I follow science, just like Kenny, I'm going to assume. A lot of people in the science field will say they have this notion, they have this belief that they have this almost compulsion to know. They need to know. Yes. They need to say to themselves, I know the mechanisms for this. I know, because it gives them stress for them not to know. And that's kind of what drives their careers in the science field. And when I watch lectures and the TED Talks and everything, a lot of those people are still struggling with I don't know, stance, because if they don't know, they see it potentially harmful to their ego and their career and stuff. So it's a big deal. I want people to feel that vibe.
I think if they have an ego, that's always going to be a problem. But I think for most people that get into the sciences are curious, and I mean sciences and good investigators, they're curious. They want to know, and even if they can't know, they continue. That's their passion. Like that's why I continue with some of these investigations that I do, even though it's taken me years and I'm still not sure what's going on. I stick with it because I'm fascinated by each little step, each little tidbit of information where I learn something new, and it's a new piece of the puzzle. It excites me and it fascinates me. Even I might have like 50 pieces of a 1,000-piece puzzle going, but that 51st piece is still going to excite me. Just like the 999th piece will excite me, because it's like one step closer to knowing how something happened. And I call it the Scooby-Doo effect. It's just, I love it. I love the ending where we get to unmask, Old Man Withers. I love it.
Yeah, that was a good show, man. That's
great.
Bill, to answer your question, he says the orbs and slow shutter cell phone pics are getting to me. Seems to be more and more of them now. People have more access to cell phones and cameras on the cell phones, and having more and more access to social media where they can share them. They can click as many as they want, and that's why you're seeing more and more. And it comes in waves. If you notice, people who are YouTubers or in marketing or whatever, they'll see there's certain spikes during the year, trends, if you will, right, that will allow for, people to start flooding social media with that kind of stuff. It's fascinating to me to see the spikes and fluctuations of that type of, behavior in people. If you step back and look at it, it's like, it's a cool emergent phenomena in a way. It's kind of like how you see a flock of birds all flying in unison and stuff like that. It's weird.
Yeah.
The brain's weird.
And Halloween's coming up, so you're going to see a lot more.
Oh yeah. And social media notices this and researches this, so their algorithms adjust for it. So you'll see probably from here all the way to Christmas, it's going to be all over the place.
Yeah. And I see Bill's comment about phones. You can adjust shutter speeds. I mean, yeah, you can. Most of your phones now have
pro setting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can adjust everything. You can adjust the ISO, the shutter speed, all kinds of settings on it. So Yeah, and I mean, if you turn the flash off, you're going to get a long exposure for the most part anyway. So you're going to have all these weird pictures and stuff that, I mean, it's fun. I mean, it's creative, but yeah, like you said, Justin, I mean, social media just lets anyone put anything up, and it just gets flooded with just crap, just a lot of crap.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Missy, are you there? Do you want to read these comments, or do you want me to help? She may not be there. Another problem.
Help me, dear.
Oh, okay. There she is. Another problem with the field is that there are people who want so badly to feel like they're a part of something and just want to believe what they experienced or captured was truly paranormal. And we kind of touched on that. They use the community to fit in, to feel, part of something. And I can relate to it. My whole life I felt weird. It's just because, I'm a weirdo. Well, I'm a geek. My brain doesn't work like, the normal drone that you see, walking through life. My brain is wired differently, and that's why most people feel weird and they don't fit in, and they kind of get shoved into this other outcasty group, and then that makes them even more desperate to be, they're starving for attention from these other groups. And it's something that you definitely need to realize. You need to figure out your own shit, man.
That's the way to do it. You need to figure out who you are.
Yes. Figure out your shit.
You don't need to follow the crowd. And you're right. You touched on it perfectly. I mean, the paranormal community is very inviting as long as you accept the beliefs that they do. Even if they're strange, even if they're not completely on board with everything, it doesn't matter. They're very open and friendly. They're only hesitant with people like me, that is the opposing side. But even that, I mean, I feel very welcome and very at home with everyone, for the most part. I mean, there's some assholes out there, but that happens everywhere. But it does offer, for lack of a better word, like a salvation for some people, because they do feel weird. They keep them themselves, or they're, like I grew up playing D&D, and it was cool back then among nerds to play D&D. Right. So you didn't actually I didn't go through high school going, hey, I'm a dungeon master. I mean, that has a different meaning now, but even so, you didn't advertise it, except for like strategy club at school, where you could get together with other nerds and play. But yeah, the community offers that acceptance, and it's easy to get swept up. And I mean, I enjoyed it. I loved it when I first got into it. Because I joined a group, and I was like, suddenly, hey, I'm with a group. I'm in a group that does things together, activities. This is great. And then we went to conferences. It's like, wow, there's so many other people. This is great. I can tell my story. They can tell their story. We all get along. We have fun. And I mean, it's very accepting. So I get it. I understand that. But like you said, figure out your own shit. You don't have to follow the crowd. You don't have to believe everything just because someone said so. You can question. You can disagree if you want to. Don't be afraid to. Be your own person. So there you go. There's your daily dose of life advice. From Kenny.
We are not medical professionals.
No. We're not psychologists. We're not medical professionals. Just friendly advice.
Yeah, we're just generalizing here. There is so much to say about this community that we find ourselves in. Some of this come from, the similar origins, some not. But at the end of the day, the people out there that are just trying to know, learn, and find out, things are not easily, discovered, things that don't have this clear-cut answer. I've read a lot of legit articles and papers that people from scientific communities taking a look at hauntings at ghost sightings, at near-death experiences, and there is legit research there. There is something going on. We just don't know what the hell it is. And the main problem is we don't understand consciousness well enough as a whole. We don't understand psychology well enough as a whole. There's so many things that we're coming out of the gate with not knowing. It's like we're stumbling around in the dark, and then things get out of control because there's people capitalizing on all this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like an echo chamber of horseshit.
Yeah, I think you're touching on something good here, but we have to remember, we have to go back that if we don't know, then we don't know. That's not, and we don't want to assume that not knowing equals paranormal. And we see that a lot. We see that so much with the TV shows, with YouTube videos, with going out on like open ghost hunts or public ghost hunts, and something happens and they don't know what happened. They don't.
We have no audio.
Uh-oh.
We have no audio.
No.
Wasn't me. I didn't do it.
I don't know how that's possible. Here, let me see.
Uh-oh.
We have no audio. No, I got audio on Restream. So I don't know why they're not hearing it. Type one in the chat if you can't hear us. Audio.
I just turned it up on Facebook.
No,
and
I got
audio.
You can't hear it?
Nope.
Well, Restream's got audio. That sucks.
Why? They're not
YouTube has audio.
Oh.
But Facebook does not.
Okay, explain that.
I just checked my Facebook and I can hear everything.
So, refresh. Let me type. Refresh. All right.
Bill said audio is fine here.
Okay.
Bill must have just went out and came back.
You gotta love the chat because it makes me, paranoid that something goes wrong, and I gotta quickly troubleshoot and figure out what it is, and it's not something you want to deal with. But
that's in. I'm like, oh shit.
Bill Davis said, "Send me a T-shirt, Bender, that says this investigation is horseshit."
And by horseshit, we don't mean to, offend. It's when you get to the point where your belief in this horseshit, what you're calling horseshit, is so well backed up, like that orb is not a ghost, and the people who put it off as paranormal, that is horseshit to us because it's so clear that it's not. And there are so many things that fall under that horseshit umbrella. And we just, people like us, we just want people to look at the blatant evidence of what it is.
I
That's all.
People just to shelf your beliefs.
That's hard. It's hard.
If you're going in, if you're investigating a location, and I think you touched on it. I don't know if you touched on it earlier or before the show, but most of these groups don't investigate the claims. They don't actually test the claims. They go into a location because the location is haunted.
Right. I asked you how you educate folks, and
so they're going in for that, and they're sucked into that idea that this place is haunted, and they carry that belief around, and they carry all the beliefs about what they think ghosts can do, what they believe ghosts can do and what they can't do, and what happens when you do certain things, that the beliefs dictate how they interpret the results. And that's wrong. That's just, there's no other way to say it. That's flat out wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be objective when you're looking at the data that's coming in, and interpret the results in more of an objective way, as objective as you can, depending on the results. And
explain objective so everyone's clear.
So basically, you have objective and subjective. Subjective is basically when you're looking at something and determining it with an emotional state. You're letting your beliefs come through, your emotions come through, and you're doing it subjectively, which means like, oh, this made me happy, so this must be good. That's more subjective. Chocolate is better than vanilla. That's subjective. But objective is more, it's relying on the data itself. So that if you say chocolate and vanilla sales for ice cream are 3-4 times chocolate is. So that's objectively saying that vanilla is more popular than chocolate. So that's the difference. You have a data-based rather than emotional-based
opinion.
So, yeah, subjective is emotional opinion, and objective is data-based. So that's a real Cliff Notes version of it.
I like that.
I do encourage everyone to look it up. Just Google subjective versus objective, and you'll get a much more detailed description. But yeah, that's a down and dirty description.
On the spot. I asked him on the spot, and that's what he got you.
Chocolate and vanilla.
But I like the analogy you used with looking at data, what actual people choose over the other. You know, that is a good, clear definition, in my opinion, between objective and subjective.
Cool.
And my favorite things I like to watch, you know, when you're taking a shit on Facebook or whatever, is the people that are blindfolded and they're asked to, you know, drink the different products, and, you know, they have to guess it, or they have to ask or say which is better. Maybe they're a Coke drinker, but when they're blindfolded, they say they like Pepsi more. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Those are cool. That's what got me hooked on psychology. I can remember one of the very first things we did in my high school class. I'm sure if you took psych, you probably remember this. There's a cup of lukewarm water, cup of hot water, cup of cold water. Lukewarm water's in the middle. So you put your hand in the lukewarm water, it feels room temperature, right? You put your hand in the hot water, then you put it back in the lukewarm water. Guess how the lukewarm water is going to feel? Colder than it did before. If you did it with the cold water and put it in the lukewarm water is going to feel hotter. Okay? That right there is the premise to almost everything you need to know about your brain. It's a comparison machine. It's constantly comparing the stimuli that you're getting now with something else.
Yes.
And in the paranormal, that something else is usually what you believe in.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you have to remember you're viewing the world. You're getting all this sensory input, and you're filtering it through your biases, because you've grown up, you were raised by your parents, family, friends, you've interacted with friends, coworkers, you've watched TV shows, documentaries, you've read some books, maybe. I mean, I read lots of books. I don't know about everyone else, but magazines. You go through this, you develop your personality and your beliefs over decades. And when you go into an investigation, you are bringing all of those filters with you. And that is a subjective way of looking at things.
Yes.
Because I like this. I like this belief better. I think ghosts can set off EMF meters because I saw it on TV and I believe it. And therefore, even without any objective data whatsoever, you have nothing to prove that except I saw it on TV and I believe that. I like that belief. I'm going to stick with it. And that's what you take with you. So when you go to a haunted house and you put your K2 meter down and all the little lights blink, your first thought is, that was a ghost. And it's based on nothing more than belief. And that is purely subjective.
I read an article, might have been a year or two back, that a person kind of had this idea that a lot of people who ghost hunt and do the paranormal investigation in quotation marks are actually exercising their spiritual beliefs. Like it's almost like a religion in a way. I hope I'm not butchering the premise to his article, but it's almost like a spiritual movement. It's almost like these people are trying to find the spirituality through, it's like like a new age spiritualism.
Yeah,
in a way.
that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
And I found that interesting because I agreed with it to a point, and I feel like a lot of people are caught up in that. They're looking for some type of spiritualism to fill a void, and I have been a victim of that. When I lost my dad at the age of 54 in 2011, that was pretty horrific for me. I felt like there was this void of spiritualism, like the imminent knowledge of mortality, my own mortality and all my loved ones' mortality, was like punching me in the face with mountains, like mountain-sized sledgehammers. And I feel like people don't realize the voids they have in their hearts when it comes to dealing with the knowledge of your own death and the knowledge that anyone that you care about could die at any moment. And the fact that a belief in life after death, and that spirits around us, our loved ones are around us, all that stuff is so comforting and so emotionally bandaging. I'm going to say that word, that we get swept up in. We kind of take that with us when we go ghost hunting. We get, these places harbor energies of the past and people that may have died there, or they were murdered, so on and so forth. You almost want to celebrate that type of spiritual concept when you go and investigate. And I feel like that's why it's hard for people to separate their beliefs when they go in, because they are fucking hardwired, in a spiritual way. When they go in, it's almost inseparable. When you said, shelf your beliefs, how do you shelf your belief when it is what's gluing you to fuck together?
That's really deep.
That's all. That's the only way I jam, dude.
That's deep, and I think that's an entire show on its own. Philosophy based the discussion on that. But I would say I can. How do I go about this? So I grew up Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
I was raised Catholic, and I was a firm believer in my young age until I got to like my high school years, where I started doubting. And I mean, I had all these beliefs. I believed in God. I believed in angels. I believed everything that Catholicism teaches us. And then I started doubting, because people would die. Like I lost loved ones, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, why? They were They were good people. Why did they die young? Why did bad people get to live longer? I didn't understand this. Why? And my beliefs started to unravel. I never considered them something that held me together. Maybe that's just me personally, but I never considered them to be any kind of glue that held me together, because I started doubting. I stopped going to church. I stopped doing any of the things that I was raised to do. And it was almost like let me see what happens. What happens if I don't go to church on Sunday? Nothing happened. And then I went to the next step and next step. And then I was very, very, what's the word? Sheltered growing up. So I didn't get exposed to other cultures or other ideas, philosophies, beliefs, religions. So once I discovered there were other religions and realized there was so much more than what I was taught, it didn't make me come apart. It opened me up to so much more. I was like, wow, there's so much more to learn. This person has different beliefs than me. Completely different beliefs. What does that mean? Like, they were raised the same way I was, but different.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, they had a different set of beliefs, but they were raised to believe that they were absolutely true. And I was raised the same way, but different beliefs. Like, that was mind-blowing to me, but fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, later on, I when I stopped believing in ghosts, when I stopped believing in so many supernatural claims, because I wanted to know more. I wanted to know, like, why, how's this possible? And uncovering more. I mean, there's so much more. It didn't make me break apart. It didn't make me depressed. It was, I guess I filled that void with the overwhelming curiousness that I had, and the need to discover what was causing these things, what caused that experience. I wanted to know, and that has consumed me, because that's what I love to do now. Like, I absolutely love figuring out the mysteries, and I don't know. That was a good topic. That's a good point to discuss. And
well, I got to follow up with that, because
Okay.
I figured that you may not get asked that in that manner all the time, and when I look at psychology, when you get past the beginner stages of you start to look at how practitioners look at trauma and how we react to the trauma. So I kind of give you an example of what trauma I experienced, and what that trauma causes, my belief systems to do, and how it shapes my philosophy and perceptions. So it was almost like I felt a void, and I feel like I needed to fill it. Where you felt like you were deceived, and you needed to fix yourself in a way. You know what I'm saying? It's interesting how we respond to our own individual situations. I'm not saying yours was like traumatic, but if you're dealing with the loss of people you care about, that's trauma. That's traumatic. So you're asking yourself, well, if there's a God, he wouldn't allow that child to have cancer and die, and then Jeffrey Dahmer, gets to live, till he's 3 years in prison. Eventually he got killed. But anyway, the point is, life's not fair. And if there is this being out there that has control of all this, I'm saying, where I'm going with this. Yeah. So it's interesting to me that when our operating system is based on how we react to trauma, because I feel like it shapes us. I feel like there is some type of glue in there. I'm using that glue as an analogy of how we perceive things through philosophically. You know what I mean? So I feel like there's a bridge between, how we deal with the trauma, philosophy, and how we perceive things that are spiritual or paranormal or supernatural. And I feel like that, that's probably not talked about enough. And there's probably not a whole lot of education with that when we're actually investigating, because we're carrying that baggage. That's another thing that our friend Parsons over there said, that we carry around this baggage with us everywhere. You know what I mean? We carry it around. What are we going to do with it? You said to shelf it, but do we go to a therapy session before we investigate?
No. I guess when I said shelf it, I mean
objective. Just try to be objective as much as possible.
You have to look at the clues that are in front of you. You have to look at the data that's coming in and properly analyze it. Say, does this follow through with my hypothesis? Is this validating what I think is happening? And I really hate using that word validate, because so many people use it wrongly, and misuse it. But yeah, does the data support my belief? And if it doesn't, don't try to justify it. And I think we see that a lot. People will make excuses in order to justify why the data really, quote, quote, does support my belief, or they twist it, or we get into the confirmation bias. Maybe the data is forgotten because it didn't support their belief.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say shelf your beliefs, seriously, put your beliefs, what you believe is really going to happen, or what you believe, as in, like, you believe ghosts exist. That's a belief, and it's not been scientifically proven. It is a belief. So leave it at home, put it on your shelf, put it in a jar, leave it at home, and go to this location thinking, okay, there are claims. Let me analyze these claims. Let me investigate these claims and see if there's anything to them. Because if you're going in thinking, this place is haunted. It has a ghost. I'm going to go look for that ghost. You're not investigating anymore. You're chasing anomalies. You are anomaly hunting. And that's what you're going to get.
Right. So this is, I think, the best time in the show to talk about scientific method. Why is that a good idea? It's the best way to be objective that we found from a scientific point of view. Okay, and I kind of touched on it a little bit. You know, you make a prediction, see if it happens, and see if you can replicate it. But, you know, if I look at this chart of the scientific method, you ask a question, do background research, construct a hypothesis, an idea of, you know, why this works. Okay, and then you test with an experiment. Okay, and then the procedure, is it working? If not, yes or no, then you troubleshoot. You troubleshoot the procedure, carefully check all steps and setups. Experimental data becomes background research for new future projects, yada, yada, yada. But you want to analyze the data and draw conclusions, and your results align with the hypothesis or they don't. And you need to communicate these results. Okay? But the whole thing that I want people to understand is you make a prediction, you ask a question, you conduct an experiment. There's all types of variables and controls that need to be in play here. I don't want to, go over that lightly. That's very important. But you want, if you believe something is you can replicate these results, and other people can replicate these results. That's what we need to see. Right. And it doesn't matter if we believe in ghosts. It doesn't matter if we believe in God. As long as we stick to this, right? We should be good. Right? Scientific method?
I feel like there's a but there somewhere coming.
No. I believe that this is what we need to do, but it's so easy to say.
It's easy to say. I think one of the common misconceptions is that there is only one scientific method. And what you read off, and I think I'm looking at the same graphic you are.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a common representation of the scientific method. It's all the steps
like
there.
A workflow.
Yeah, it's a workflow chart, and you go through it. But you don't have to do every single thing on there. When you're talking about when you're using science, like, you're not always using the scientific method. If you're going to experiment with something, if you want to say, all right, I think ghosts exist. Your hypothesis is basically a question with a possible answer. So let's say, like, my hypothesis would be, I think ghosts exist, and I think ghosts are made up of some kind of electromagnetic energy. I hate saying the word energy. And that EMF meters can pick them up. So now you have to design some kind of test in order to test that hypothesis, and that's your experiment phase. And that alone can take up years of study just to get the perfect experiment, because how do you test for that? You got to figure out how to test. Does a ghost affect EMF meters? How do you test that?
You got to prove that ghosts exist first.
You have to have a ghost. You need to have one. So the closest you can get is going to an alleged haunted location and hoping that something happens. But in that test, in your test design, you have to account for all these variables, which you mentioned. You need to account for everything that could possibly happen, which means you have to guard against radio waves, radio frequencies from two-way radios. You have to guard against any kind of electrical lines in there that might have power surges and whatever else might affect that meter. These are things that are not thought of. When you go to any kind of ghost hunt or paranormal investigation, I hardly ever, but in my experience, I've never seen anyone use a Faraday cage. A good one, not the cheap shit you get on Amazon. So I've never seen it. I've used it. I have one. Oh no, it's back here. It's under some boxes, so you can't see it. But I have one right here that works, and I've used it a couple times successfully. It blocked out everything. Nothing happened. But this is the kind of control that you have to have in place in order to do a proper experiment. If you have an EMF meter just out in the middle of the room and it blinks or it registers some kind of spike, you have no freaking clue what caused that. None. So you're not using science. You're not following the scientific method. You are not doing a proper investigation when you're using that device in that method, in that way. You're not doing it. So the importance of science, I mean, science, the scientific method is the best tool that we have for understanding the world.
Objectively.
It's collecting, it's trying to weed out the human element as much as possible. It's taking out your emotions, especially when you're doing double blind and triple blind studies. You're trying to take out the human element for error or biases or what is that? Experimenter bias, where the experimenter wants so bad that his hypothesis is true that he skews the data to make it work. You want to go through all these procedures just to make sure that you have good, solid data that you can work with. So I can't stress enough, and we really don't have time to go into all the aspects of this method, but we're kind of touching on these things. So yeah, if you do an experiment, if you design an experiment that takes into account all these variables that could possibly happen, and you still get some kind of anomaly, then it's time to analyze it, to send it out to other people, to take your results and send it to another team. And I don't mean, and again, I'm not trying to be mean, but you don't send it to another ghost hunting team. You try to contact a scientist or pretty much a scientist that does the kind of work that you're doing or knows something about what you're doing, in this case, EMF, and run it by them. Run the experiment again, see if you get the same results. And then you try to go back and say, all right, what could possibly do or cause this anomaly? What could cause this? Is there any known things? Do we know something that might cause this? Let's try to block that out and see if it happens again.
So, I hate to interject here, but
go ahead, please.
One of my favorite articles and reviews you did was the SLS camera. You contacted Microsoft, am I right? Yes. To really dig into the nuts and bolts of how the thing works and what could be the problems. And it seemed like, based on my memory of your article, that there's flaws in the programming and the algorithms that will allow things to lock on things properly. If you misuse it, yada yada yada, you get anomalies. And that was one of my favorite things that you want to look at. You want to know how the thing works, and then when you're looking at the EMF meter analogy, you want to contact the person who made the fucking EMF meter. Yeah. Just like in this example, and this is why. That person's going to be the best guy to tell you what sets it off, what false positives there are, everything you need to know, technical knowledge you need to know about your experiment. And a lot of people just don't want to do this. Real investigative work is hard. It's work. It's actual work, and most of the time it goes unpaid and unrewarded. Except for the learning part, that's rewarding, and the educating part, you get to tell people about what you found out, and it helps. It's the Lord's work, as we say. But I love that. That's my favorite part of what you do. You do what's necessary to do the actual research and investigative part, and that's what we need to do. It like you said, it may take us weeks, months, years to get all the information we need to draw the best objective conclusion we possibly can. And yeah, it may have taken a long time to figure out that spike on the EMF meter was a glitch, or it's something that is normal for the device to occur in the situation you had it in, and you wouldn't have known unless you contacted the person who actually made it, or people who are credible sources for the knowledge needed to give you advice on that equipment.
So I got 3 things, 3 points to briefly go over. So one is, when you're doing that kind of research, Like, well, actually, first, you are absolutely correct. Researching this kind of stuff is hard. It's time consuming. It's very difficult. It's not as easy as just planning a Saturday night with your friends, going to a haunted house. It is weeks and months, maybe years worth of work. Phone calls, emails, meetings in person, appointments, and
waiting.
like, oh my God, waiting. So yeah, there's that. You also need to keep going. Don't just do research until you get the answer that you want. Keep going. Try to prove yourself wrong. Because there might be something, like you might get an answer from a manufacturer like, hey, if I go in here and there's nothing in that room, could this meter go off? They might say yes. Don't hang up the phone. Keep asking, like, what else could make this go off? Why would this go off in a empty room? Because they might have an answer for you. They might have a very natural answer for you that's based on the device itself or battery life or something like that they could bring to you. Which brings me to my third point is that, like, when I get an article on reviewing my buddy Zach Baggins, and I use the term sarcastically, when he did that Demon House documentary. Mm-hmm. So there was a scene in there where they're using a tri-field meter, and the needle was going all over the place. And there were several conditions where I was like, all right, well, they're in such an environment. I wonder if that could affect it. So what I did, I actually contacted Alpha Lab, who makes that. And I talked to Bill Lee, who is the president and owner of the company that makes the tri-field meters. He got on the phone with me, and I spoke with him at length. We spoke for about an hour and a half.
Wow.
Really nice guy, awesome guy. And we talked about everything that could possibly happen with that. And I described the situation. I was giving him details, like looking at I had the film up on screen, and I was describing exactly what was happening. And he was like, yeah, this will happen because of this and this and this. And he gave me all the details. And I was amazed because it's stuff I never knew. He was telling me all these details that would make it go off. And even if you're holding it in your hand, and the one style meter is not supposed to read anything coming off of you. But like one of the key points was that if there's radio interference coming from behind you, it'll reflect off your hand and hit the meter and make it go off. And I was like, what? That's amazing. That's amazing. And I bet no one else knows this, at least in the paranormal community. I don't think anyone knows this. So
I do.
There you go.
Well, the not to interrupt, but the main thing that I researched was the spirit box. I had to learn what made radios work. Amplitude modulation, frequency modulation. I learned about all that, and what I learned was that not only can AM frequencies bounce off of shit, that the sensors on your meters are directional. Like you said, moving them around, adjusting them left or right. Like AM, especially AM, will reflect right off of you or any physical surface and hit your sensor. It's awesome. It's cool.
Yeah. It's cool. Yeah, the science is really cool. And I wish people would realize that and really dig into it, because science is awesome. You have no idea. It's so much better than the science fiction that the fantasy that we see on like ghost hunting shows. It's so much better.
Yeah, but I love that you got to talk to the guy who that makes tri-field meters for an hour and a half.
Dude, I was so surprised because I emailed the company and he's the one that responded. I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And then he gave me his phone number. I was like, oh, this is even better. So very excited.
Wow.
I loved it.
Yeah, I bet you did. So that is the main reason why you folks need to go check out Kenny Biddle's stuff. Not only does he learn about the stuff you're using and reports back onto you how it works and what are the proper uses and misuses, he talks to the motherfuckers that not only make it, but the presidents of the companies. Okay? Who does that? Kenny does. Okay? So if you really want to know He's doing the legwork. Okay, he's got how many years logged, and how many articles and how many videos logged. I mean, how long can you occupy somebody for, Kenny? It's a lot, right? It's a lot.
Yeah. I got a lot. I just on Skeptical Inquirer, which is the magazine that I write for, I have 70 plus articles just on that, and that's not including the print articles. So I mean, I love it, and I'll continue to write for them. So they give me a platform where I can pretty much do whatever I want within reason. And then my work is actually checked. I have it goes through 3 editors who also fact check all my references. And then if I specifically mention a company or person, then it usually goes through legal to make sure, there's nothing wrong there, and I'm perfectly within my right to say what I'm saying, which is excellent. I mean, that's how it should be. This is not playing keyboard warrior where I can just bitch at people, because I can be held liable for some of the things that I say. If I'm just making shit up, or if I'm guessing, I can get in trouble for it. So I definitely want to avoid getting in trouble. So, but it works out great, and it's worth going the extra distance. It doesn't bother me if something doesn't get done in an afternoon. I mean, I'd be surprised if I could do that. I'd rather go through the motions and, years later say, oh, you know what? I started this 5 years ago. I finally found a conclusion. The mystery is solved. Here it is. Here's all the information. I'm happy. If something took me a month, I'd still be the same amount of happy because it's solving a mystery, and that's what I love to do.
Awesome. So, go ahead and plug everything that you got. I know I did on the link I shared initially on Necromancer Live. I linked your Facebook page, your YouTube channel, and CSI's your blog on CSI.
So, all right, you can find most of my work at skepticalinquirer.org. I am a columnist for the magazine, so I usually have my stuff online, but I also do the print magazine once in a while. I also do work for the Center for Inquiry, which publishes Skeptical Inquirer, so I do lectures on their behalf. Next month, October 20th to 23rd, I'll be in Las Vegas, Nevada, because I will be speaking at the science conference out there, put on by the Center for Inquiry and Skeptical Inquirer. And I'll be actually talking about how believers and skeptics can work together, trying to get people to work together and not be like butting heads all the time. With that, I have my Friday night show, which is called the Skeptical Help Bar. It's usually Friday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. I also do another podcast, or a video podcast, a vodcast. Is that what they're called? Live stream. I'm just going to call it a live stream. I do a live stream Saturday nights called 3 Tortured Souls with Dave Schumacher and Tim Vickers. And it's basically a show where we take one topic and the 3 of us come at it from different perspectives and talk about it for an hour, which is really fun. I also do a video series for Skeptical Inquirer called The Ghosts in the Machine. And it basically is it's YouTube videos where I either take apart ghost hunting equipment, or I went on a ghost hunt up at the Hinsdale House. I did a video up there. I filmed during a public ghost hunt and went through and showed people what goes on. Also exposed someone faking a seance, which is really cool. So check it out. And I think that's it for now. There's so much other projects that I can't talk about yet because they're all in super secret planning mode. But if you tune in Friday night on my Facebook page, which is called I Am Kenny Biddle, or my YouTube channel, which I think is just Kenny Biddle. If you tune in Friday night at 8 p.m., I'm going to be making a substantial announcement, and come check it out. So,
awesome.
There you go.
We'll wrap up the show with Tim Vickers trolling.
I love
How do I
Tim.
tell the difference between positive energy and negative energy for Kenny? And I don't think he's referring to charge.
Oh, Tim, he knows that bothers me. So there's so many kinds of energy, and yeah, when you're not talking about a battery terminals, there is no positive and negative energy. Energy is not bad or good. It's just energy, and there's different forms. There's kinetic, potential, radiation. There's so many different kinds of energy, but the metaphysical kind that is often used as a buzzword or filler in paranormal circles it's misused. That's what it is. It's misused because it's a filler word. They're not using it in the right context. Energy means the ability to do work. So if you use energy in kind of like a paranormal phrase, if you take the word energy out and substitute the ability to do work in there, and if it still sounds right, then by all means use it. But if not, which it doesn't, stop using it. Stop using the word energy. It doesn't fit.
Well, I can come up with a really asshole argument to that. So if you believe that there is a metaphysical energy field that is negative, you are doing work on physical systems by believing that. Technically you are. But not in the way you think.
Salad. You just stop.
Not in the way you think.
Word salad. word fucking salad.
Kenny, I love you. Thanks for coming on. Check out his shit, guys. If you don't, you scared. All right. Kenny, you can stay on the call if you want to while I wrap this up. If you need to go, you need to go.
I'm good.
All right. Let me go ahead and mute the desktop. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging in for 2 hours. It's hard. This one might have been a little bit more abrasive and, strenuous to listen to, but it's very important. I wanted to have him on. I like having him back and just talking about this stuff because I believe it's important, okay? So go check out stuff. I linked everything that he talked about in the chat. Do it right now. This is the social media accounts that you can follow Interface Death and our podcast and everything that we put out there. Definitely go check that out. We put a lot of time, energy, and money into it. And while we're talking about money, Patreon, there it is. There's all the superheroes that we get to shout out on every stream. They're the one who does this financial support. I'll link the Patreon in the chat if you want to go check it out. Thank you very much to the people you see on the screen. Couldn't do it without you guys. And that's where I'm going to leave it. You guys have a good night. Next week, I believe, Marcus Hogg. He is the owner. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I'm sorry, Marcus, if that's incorrect. The owner of Greenville Manor. Lots of cool things going on there. If you want to investigate the paranormal, he allows people to go in there and do investigations and mess around. He's a paranormal investigator as well. Been in it for a while, so. You get to find out about Greenville Manor and what's been going on over there next weekend, so tune in for that. I'm out of here, guys. We'll see you next time.